Chapter 5:13. I bumped into her by accident. Fortunately, she didn't discover me. But if I meet her again, I might not be so lucky. Ning Jiao said softly. The two men's expressions changed slightly, but Yang Qin suddenly said, Miss Ning shouldn't be weak. Why would you be afraid of Chu Luiyue? Ning Jiao paused for a moment and said meaningfully, Chu Luiyue is much stronger than what she looks like on the surface. Wasn't it already clear during the preliminaries? Jian Fengqi is so arrogant. How could he choose someone who can't do anything to participate in the Wanzheng competition? Yang Qin and the other two looked at each other and fell into a strange silence. They were well aware of this point. Just now, to be honest, Miss Ning, we did meet Chu Luiyue just now and exchanged blows with her. But she's very cunning and has already escaped to the Long Yuan sword. The bearded man spoke, but his words were very subtle. Yang Qin laughed in her heart, but she didn't show it on her face. Ning Jiao was shocked. Really? Is alone? She did hear Chu Luiyue's name just now, so she purposely probed. But from the looks of it, Chu Luiyue fought against 3 alone and successfully escaped. The two men were a little embarrassed. The lanky man immediately said, after we were injured by the Long Yuan sword aura, she took advantage of the situation. Also, there's something strange about her. The Long Yuan sword aura is very terrifying, but she easily resolved it. I don't know why. No one mentioned Chu Luiyue's unusual crystal barrier. Ning Jiao really had some doubts about Chu Luiyue now. She said the purpose of this trip. In that case, why don't we join forces first? On the other side, the legendary three-eyed eagle was rushing to the bottom of the crater with Chu Luiyue. The moment they entered, the surrounding sword aura surged crazily. The legendary three-eyed eagle flapped its wings, and Chu Luiyue immediately sensed that the surrounding space was rapidly freezing. When the black sword qi reached the space, they simultaneously slowed down and even stopped completely. This was the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine domain. Realization dawned on Chu Luiyue. So this is its trump card. Within this space, it had absolute control over everything. It was true that the Long Yuan sword was a divine item, but the legendary three-eyed eagle was also a divine beast. According to the power of these sword qis, wanting to break through the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine domain, they were still lacking by a bit. Just like that, the man and the beast passed through the layers of sword qi and rushed down into the depths below. The further down he went, the more sword qi there were, and the fiercer it was. However, the legendary three-eyed eagle's speed did not decrease. Chu Luiyue leaned over its back and stared at the ground below. When she got closer, she suddenly realized that there was a golden flame flashing past the place where the Long Yuan sword was buried. Chu Luiyue's heart stirred. When he wanted to take a closer look, he found that the flame had already disappeared. She frowned slightly. Could it be that she saw wrongly just now? However, the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened its mouth in shock. How is this possible? It had always been cold and indifferent, and rarely used such a tone to speak. It could be seen that it was shocked. What's wrong? Chu Luiyue quickly asked. The legendary three-eyed eagle flapped its wings and said, Did you see that there was a cluster of golden flames below the Long Yuan sword? Chu Luiyue nodded. You saw it too? I thought that I was hallucinating. That's not a hallucination. The legendary three-eyed eagle said firmly, That's the flame on the divine beast's corpse. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes slightly. The flame on the divine beast's corpse? What does that mean? This flame belongs to that divine beast? She did not know much about divine beasts, and she did not know anything about flames. However, that golden flame did not look simple. Is the divine beast under the Long Yuan sword very powerful? Chu Luiyue asked. The legendary three-eyed eagle was silent for a long time before it said word by word. There is only one race in the world that has such a golden flame, the ancient divine beast, the great phoenix dragon. Chu Luiyue's heart instantly stirred up huge waves. What? You're saying that the divine beast's corpse of swordsman Long Yuan is actually, how is this possible? That's an ancient divine beast. Chu Luiyue was in disbelief. One had to know that ancient divine beasts were more ancient and powerful than ordinary divine beasts. That was a supreme being that only existed in distant legends. How could it appear here? However, as a divine beast, the legendary three-eyed eagle knew more about these things than she did. She held her breath and recalled the cluster of golden flames she saw just now. She actually became nervous. Are you sure? That's really the corpse of the great phoenix dragon? The legendary three-eyed eagle was obviously shocked as well, and said in a deep voice, the only clue we have is that golden flame. We can't be completely sure yet, but it should be close. This meant that it had already confirmed it, and it just lacked the last bit of evidence. Chu Luiwei did not say anything for a long time. Her emotions were surging in her heart. She stared at the Long Yuan sword. Looking at it again, it felt a little different from before. Taizu failed to break through the 9th stage back then and did not step into the legendary higher realm. According to his strength at that time, it was not enough to kill an ancient divine beast like the great phoenix dragon. She could not help but mutter. The totem of the Tianling dynasty was indeed a sword that cut off the dragon's head. She had never thought that the dragon's head could be the great phoenix dragon. The legendary three-eyed eagle said firmly, "We'll know when we see it." Chu Luiwei took a deep breath. Okay. At this point, it was impossible to retreat. The only choice was to find out. Whoosh! The legendary three-eyed eagle flapped its wings, and the energy of the divine territory instantly shattered the surrounding sword energy. Its figure flashed, and it quickly headed toward the place where the golden flame had appeared. Gradually, Chu Luiwei felt a scorching wave of air surging from the bottom of the sinkhole. Chu Luiwei's hands suddenly tightened. A bold conjecture surfaced in her mind. The strange climate of this world was most likely related to this. The air wave contained rich heaven and earth origin power. Even in the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine territory, Chu Luiwei could still clearly feel that the pressure was gradually increasing. Whoosh! Suddenly, a faint sound could be heard. Chu Luiwei looked sideways and saw that the divine territory was crazily squeezed by the surrounding power, and a hole burst open. The legendary three-eyed eagle's body swayed for a moment, and then it began to fly down at an even faster speed. However, Chu Luiwei's heart was in her mouth as she stared at the opening with a deadly gaze. Boom! There was an explosion, and the divine territory collapsed. Chu Luiwei and the legendary three-eyed eagle were immediately exposed outside the divine territory. She could clearly see that the legendary three-eyed eagle's body had become much more illusory. The turbulent air wave wrapped in countless black sword energy crazily arrived. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 5:14. However, right at this moment, the black pyramid in Chu Luiwei's body suddenly emitted a powerful fluctuation. Those sword auras instantly stopped in front of Chu Luiwei, and those surging waves of scorching air quickly retreated as if they had encountered something terrifying. In just the blink of an eye, they all disappeared completely. Looking at the countless black sword auras that were right in front of her, as if they would pierce through her body in the next second, Chu Luiwei was also stunned. She didn't even have the time to throw out the glass barrier in her hand. But now, it seemed like she didn't need it. Right at this moment, on the Long Yuan sword, a silver lightning suddenly struck down from the top of the sword hilt. The originally deep and majestic Long Yuan sword seemed to have undergone some kind of refinement and became much brighter and sharper. Previously, there was also lightning swimming on the Long Yuan sword, but Chu Luiwei felt that something seemed to be different this time. As expected, when the silver lightning followed the sword and entered the crater, the second one actually followed closely behind. Moreover, this one was much thicker than the previous one. In an instant, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Thunder rumbled. Chu Luiwei stared at the Long Yuan sword closely, and gradually, a subtle sense of familiarity actually arose. This feeling came from the Long Yuan sword and the black pyramid in her body. Boom! A loud sound came from afar. Ning Jiao and the rest looked up and saw a dazzling silver light flashing on the Long Yuan sword. The the Long Yuan sword is about to awaken? The lanky man suddenly exclaimed in shock. As his voice fell, the others also widened their eyes, and their faces were filled with shock. Ning Jiaojiao couldn't help but ask, What do you mean by that? She didn't cultivate the way of the sword, so she didn't quite understand what it meant. Because of his agitation, the lanky man's face flushed red. He explained with a trembling voice, the Long Yuan sword is a divine weapon, and it has a sword's soul. When its owner dies, it will also fall into a deep sleep. Most divine weapons will completely fall silent and be sealed forever. But if it chooses to awaken, Ning Jiaojiao asked, what does it mean? It means it's about to choose a new owner. The thin and tall man said these words with a heart full of excitement. The blood in his body seemed to be boiling. The bearded man beside him had the same reaction. In comparison, Yang Qin's expression was still calm, but there was a deep desire in her eyes as she looked at the Long Yuan sword. The Purple Shao sword sect had always specialized in sword arts. Now, not only could they see the Dragon Abyss sword with their own eyes, they could even witness its awakening. How could they not be excited? The most important thing was that the Long Yuan sword was about to choose a new master. Such a great opportunity might be theirs. Ning Jiaojiao finally understood. She lowered her eyes and pondered for a moment. Oh right, is Chu Luiyue near the Long Yuan sword? These words immediately reminded the others, causing them to wake up from their fanatical excitement, and their expressions changed. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Ning Jiaojiao said hesitantly as her eyes flickered. For a divine artifact like the Dragon Abyss sword, it's a matter of luck for those who can obtain it, and not a matter of who is close to it. Even though the bearded man said that, he was still panicking. Who knew why the Long Yuan sword suddenly awakened? No matter what, Chu Luiyue was closer, and it was more convenient for him than them. They didn't even know what was going on over there. Ning Jiaojiao's gaze swept across the few of them. She sneered in her heart, but her expression was sincere. In my opinion, the Long Yuan sword has been asleep for 1,000 years. According to its awakening, it will definitely choose a 1-in-a-million genius to be its new master. Not to mention other things, at least in terms of swordsmanship, he should have a good cultivation. My Xianfeng Hall is inferior to him in this aspect. However, the few of you are disciples of the Purple Shao sword sect, and you are most familiar with swords. Isn't that so? Her words made the two men waver. Not to mention Chu Luiyue, even if you look at all the participants in this Wanzheng competition, you won't be able to find anyone more suitable than the few of you to be the new master of the Long Yuan sword. However, if such a great opportunity is snatched away by someone else, if it were me, I would definitely regret it for the rest of my life. So, I wonder if my suggestion just now. We agree to it. The skinny and tall man made the final decision. The remaining Yang Qin and the other man also nodded in agreement. Ning Jiaojiao's lips curved. Even if she hadn't said such provocative words, the few of them would have made the same choice. Because that was what they thought in their hearts. Her words had only spoken to the bottom of their hearts and acted as an assist. Ning Jiaojiao suggested, let's work together to deal with Chu Luiyue first. We'll share whatever treasures we find. As for the Long Yuan sword, the one with the greatest opportunity will get it. It's a deal. Yang Qin looked back and suddenly exclaimed. Those black sword auras seem to have returned to the Long Yuan sword. The few of them raised their eyes and looked over. Sure enough, they saw several streaks of black sword chi that came from nowhere surging into the Long Yuan sword. At the same time, streaks of silver lightning struck down continuously. Let's go! Ning Jiaojiao was the first to react and immediately rushed forward. The others didn't want to be outdone and quickly followed. The 9th bolt of silver lightning struck the sword. In an instant, the sword hummed. It was as if a huge beast that had been sleeping for a long time had suddenly awakened. It was also as if a hole had been torn open in the endless darkness, and the sky suddenly lit up. One could vaguely see the vast and mighty existence from within. Chu Luiyue opened his eyes and stared at the Long Yuan sword in front of him without blinking. The Long Yuan sword had actually awakened on its own. The surrounding black sword auras started to return to the Long Yuan sword continuously. The sound of something breaking through the air rang in his ears. The legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly exclaimed. Chu Liwei followed its line of sight and looked over, and his pupils constricted. A golden flame suddenly emerged from the ground. It still appeared at the position where the Long Yuan sword had sunk into the ground, but it was much more intense than the first time. Moreover, not only did it not disappear, it started to spread in all directions. In a short time, the huge crater's bottom was completely filled with golden flames. From above, it looked as if the Long Yuan sword had pierced into a ball of golden flames. The divine beast's corpse is below. We have to hurry. The power of the heavenly Tao can't support us for too long. The legendary three-eyed eagle shouted in a deep voice. Chu Liyue's brows knitted tightly. You mean, we have to barge into this golden flame? The legendary three-eyed eagle replied affirmatively. The Long Yuan sword has already awakened, and this is its only opening. Once it recognizes another master, the divine beast's corpse will either be taken over or completely destroyed. Chu Liwei nodded, and a red flame instantly spread out from her body and covered her entire body. Let's go! The legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly swooped down. The figures of a human and a beast instantly disappeared in the flames. Boom! The flames soared into the sky. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 5:15. What's that? Ning Jiao and the rest were stunned when they saw the golden flames that suddenly gushed out. They quickly rushed forward, and only then did they see the huge sinkhole, and the golden flames that had already covered half of the sinkhole. They wanted to get closer to take a closer look, but they were forced back by the scorching flames and the vast aura. Therefore, they could only stand on the outside and watch all of this happen with their own eyes. Where's Chu Liwei? Yang Qin looked around but didn't see Chu Liwei. She clearly came here just now. Could it be Chu Liwei went down from here? They exchanged glances. Other than that, there seemed to be no other reasonable explanation. This flame, she'll die if she falls in. She should have been sent out of the Tianling God realm. The lanky man speculated. Let's wait for the Long Yuan sword to completely awaken. The others didn't have any objections. No matter what Chu Liyue's situation was, the most important thing now was the Long Yuan sword. The few of them fell silent and started to wait together. After that, more and more people arrived around the sinkhole. Everyone tacitly didn't move and spread out in all directions of the sinkhole, waiting for the Long Yuan sword to completely awaken. Including Yang Qin and the other three, there were a total of 9 people. This number seemed insignificant, but it was actually very rare. The others had already been eliminated because they couldn't withstand the force that kept pouring into their bodies. Those who could reach here in the end either had outstanding Daijing Yuan meridians or had some tricks or treasures. In short, they weren't easy to deal with. Chang Wanzhou was the 10th to reach here. He was injured, but fortunately it wasn't serious. He walked to the side of the sinkhole, looked inside and frowned slightly. Chu Liyue's aura disappeared in the golden flames. He thought for a moment and started to wait on the spot. The legendary three-eyed eagle broke through the golden flames and went straight down with Chu Liwei. The golden flames that covered the sky and earth obscured their vision. Chu Liwei could only feel the surrounding flames surging crazily like lava. Suddenly, she saw that a door seemed to have appeared within the golden flames. What's that? Chu Liwei quickly asked. The legendary three-eyed eagle didn't say anything. It ran even faster. When they got closer, Chu Liwei finally saw that it was a black door. It was unknown what material the door was made of. It was dark and gloomy, and it emitted a threatening cold air. The door was engraved with reliefs. It was a sword. Chu Liwei looked over and immediately recognized that it was the Long Yuan sword. This is the seal on the divine beast's corpse that came from the Long Yuan sword. The legendary three-eyed eagle said resolutely. Chu Liwei immediately understood. The divine beast's corpse is behind this door? That's right. As long as he opened the door, he would be able to enter. Chu Liyue stared at the door and fell into deep thought. Opening this door, I'm afraid it will be somewhat difficult. Just as she said that, the black pyramid in her body suddenly flew out of her body as if it was summoned by something. Chu Liyue was shocked and immediately wanted to snatch it back. However, just as her hand was about to touch the black pyramid, she suddenly saw a flash of cold light on the door. It was the long yuan sword's reliefs that were moving. Chu Liyue's movement stopped. The black pyramid slowly rotated in front of the door. A subtle aura surged out from it. Creak, the door opened. Chu Liyue's heart was determined. She took back the black pyramid and immediately rushed in. Bang! The door closed tightly behind her. Chu Liyue heaved a sigh of relief and looked forward. This was actually a magnificent hall. At a glance, it was made of extremely precious jade stones. And on the ground, there were countless jewels and treasures scattered. The orchids, which were priceless outside, were actually piled up into a small mountain here. In the corners, there were scattered longan-sized illusory pearls. One had to know that this thing, which was the size of a mung bean, could be sold for 10,000 white crystal coins outside. Even Chu Liyue couldn't help but hold her breath after seeing so many treasures. This wealth was simply terrifying. These things were different from pills or martial skills. They were all real gold and silver. However, this place seemed to have been abandoned for too long. Everything was covered with a thick layer of dust. Chu Liyue muttered, "Could this be a treasure trove left behind by the Taizu? This is the lair of the great phoenix dragon." The words of the legendary three-eyed eagle immediately made Chu Liyue shudder. What? The great phoenix dragon clan is an ancient divine beast and can be called supreme. They love to collect these treasures the most. The legendary three-eyed eagle paused for a moment before reluctantly saying the last two words. The great phoenix dragon clan's status was very high, and their strength was also indisputable. Almost all divine beasts had to bow down to them. However, the great phoenix dragon clan had a hobby. They liked to collect all kinds of shiny stones and jade, and then piled all these things from all over the place in their lair. This hobby, how to put it? In fact, it wasn't a bad habit, but when it thought of the majestic great phoenix dragon sleeping on piles of jade stones every day, it really shattered the beast's fantasy. The legendary three-eyed eagle thought that this was just a legend, but it didn't expect. Chu Liyue nodded in understanding and looked around. Since this is their lair, why don't I see the corpses? Chu Liyue's voice suddenly stopped. Digression, recommended friend vegetarian steamed bun, rebirth, 9 beautiful daughters. Introduction. Heavenly Master Shi Qi was accidentally reborn in the body of Shi Bao Qi, the youngest daughter of the landlord's family. Not only did she instantly become a little peasant girl, but because of her extreme mother's infinite love, the whole family doesn't like her. Let's see how Shi Qi will clear her name and lead the Shi family to the peak of life. She even managed to kidnap a reserved and powerful man back at the same time. There are 3 good things about a man: long legs and good looks. But he's cold on the outside, but domineering on the inside, but he dotes on her like a treasure. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy. Chapter 5:16. In the middle of the hall, half of a huge corpse was lying there quietly. Every inch of the bone was as clear as jade. It was very easy to confuse it among the pile of treasures, so Chu Liyue did not recognize it at first. But if one looked carefully, they could still distinguish it. A faint pressure spread out from it. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, the three-eyed eagle let out a cry, retracted its wings, and lowered its head slightly. Chu Liyue glanced at it, and could clearly feel the respect and submission in its heart. There was no doubt that this corpse was indeed the great phoenix dragon. "How are you?" Chu Liyue asked worriedly. The three-eyed eagle shook its head. The great phoenix dragon is an ancient divine beast, and has an absolute bloodline pressure. If this is a living great phoenix dragon, I will definitely obey, but fortunately, only half of its skeleton is left. I can still bear it. Chu Luiwei was secretly speechless. The three-eyed eagle was also considered an extremely powerful divine beast, but in front of this great phoenix dragon, it instantly became small. This was only half of a corpse, but the remaining pressure on it was so terrifying. I really don't know what kind of existence the real great phoenix dragon is. According to your current strength, the great phoenix dragon only needs to look at you, and it can destroy your body and soul. The three-eyed eagle said indifferently. Chu Luiwei thought to herself that whether or not she could see it was still a problem. Besides, even if she really had the chance to see the real great phoenix dragon, it was still uncertain what her realm would be at that time. Why is there half a corpse here? She frowned and asked. The three-eyed eagle shook its head, indicating that it did not know. The great phoenix dragon clan especially values corpses. Even if they die outside, they will travel thousands of miles to find them and will not casually leave them outside. This corpse is only half a corpse. Perhaps it is because of this reason that it was not discovered by the great phoenix dragon clan. Chu Luiwei thought for a while and felt that it made sense. But if there is only half a corpse, how will your body recover? The three-eyed eagle pondered for a while and said, the great phoenix dragon is an ancient divine beast, and its bloodline power is also higher than all other divine beasts. If you can use this power, even if there is only half a corpse, you can still reconstruct your body. Chu Luiwei sighed in relief. That's good. In that case, let's take this corpse away first. When we find everything we need, we will help you. Is there anything wrong? Seeing the three-eyed eagle looking at her with a strange gaze, Chu Luiwei coughed. You want to take this corpse away? The three-eyed eagle asked. Chu Luiwei nodded hesitantly. This is not appropriate? The three-eyed eagle's gaze became even more strange. Do you think the interspatial ring on your hand can withstand the pressure of this corpse? Chu Luiwei finally understood what it meant. She patted her forehead lightly. Hiss, how could he have forgotten about this? What do you say? Is it just like this? It was not easy for us to come in. It was because the three-eyed eagle asked that she rushed in. If she was told that she could only look and not take it. Heavenly Square Cauldron. The three-eyed eagle said in a low voice. Put the corpse in the heavenly square cauldron. On one hand, you can take it away. On the other hand, you can also extract the remaining power of the great phoenix dragon's bloodline. Chu Luiwei nodded. With a thought, the heavenly square cauldron appeared in her palm. A transparent karmic fire burned quietly in it. Chu Luiwei moved her wrist slightly, and the heavenly square cauldron flew into the air and expanded rapidly. A transparent flame spread out from within and swept towards the half of the corpse on the ground. However, just as the transparent karmic fire touched the corpse, a bright light suddenly flashed. Chu Luiwei instinctively covered her eyes. After a moment, she suddenly realized something and looked over. Above the corpse, there was a huge Xian formation flashing with flowing light. It blocked the transparent karmic fire outside. When she saw the Xian formation clearly, Chu Luiwei's eyebrows twitched violently. This was a level 9 Xian formation. After she reached level 8 Xian Master in her previous life, she had been stuck at this level and could not move forward. If it was a slightly lower level, she might try to break it, but this one was a dead end. There is a seal on this half of the corpse. It seems that we have to break it. The three-eyed eagle's words made Chu Luiwei feel even more despair. She held her forehead as she felt a headache coming on. She looked at the profound formation that was quietly rotating in front of her and asked in an extremely empty voice, "Do you think I have the strength?" Just now, it said that the great phoenix dragon could kill her with a glance. The three-eyed eagle glanced at her. Of course you don't. But the heavenly Tao can. Chu Luiwei was stunned. What do you mean? The three-eyed eagle suddenly fell silent and did not speak for a long time. Just when Chu Luiwei thought that it would not speak, it finally said, a level 9 Xian formation is actually not much different from a level 8 Xian formation. The only difference is that a level 9 Xian formation contains a wisp of heavenly Tao power. As long as you can break it, you can easily break it. Chu Luiwei opened her mouth. How do you know? The three-eyed eagle seemed to be gritting its teeth. Back then, I was suppressed by a level 9 Xian formation. How can I not know? Chu Luiwei immediately understood. So, the person who suppressed you back then was also a Xian master? And a level 9 one? The three-eyed eagle's gaze was cold, and there was a hint of hatred in its eyes. Chu Luiwei tactfully changed the topic. But even so, I'm only a level 3 Xian master now. How can I break the heavenly Tao? This was simply a fool's dream. The legendary three-eyed eagle stared at her. Others might not be able to, but you definitely can. Because you also have the heavenly Tao in your body. Chu Luiwei trembled as if she understood something. She pursed her lips. Then I'll try. After saying that, she sat cross-legged and held her breath in concentration. The water droplet in her dantian was slowly rotating. Chu Luiwei began to try to summon the heavenly Tao power. One came from the god-stunning art, and the other came from the contract with the three-eyed eagle. After an unknown period of time, a faint light spot appeared in the water droplet. Chu Luiwei was delighted. That should be the aura of the heavenly Tao. Then she opened her eyes and looked at the complicated and huge level 9 Xian formation. She flicked her finger. A tiny water droplet suddenly flew out from her fingertip. A star could be clearly seen in it. Wherever the water droplet passed, a black spatial crack silently appeared. When it gradually approached, an incomparably tyrannical power suddenly erupted from the level 9 Xian formation. Countless streams of light intertwined. It was dazzling. Chu Luiwei's heart tightened. The aura of the heavenly Tao on the level 9 Xian formation was already hidden in the tens of thousands of streams of light. It was difficult to find. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 517. That water droplet floated quietly in front of the huge Xian formation, appearing extremely small. However, both sides were in a stalemate. Chu Luiwei knew that this was actually a battle between two heavenly laws. If she wanted to win, she had to ensure that she would win in one strike. Her gaze was fixed on the countless streams of light that were intertwined. The legendary three-eyed eagle stood at the side silently. The entire space was eerily quiet. Boom. Another tile slashed down. Light splashed everywhere, making it hard to look at. Retreat again. The people waiting outside the crater were affected by the energy and retreated again. However, most of them were injured to varying degrees. This is already the 27th Tianlei of the Long Yuan sword, and it's already so powerful. If we really wait for the 81 Tianlei to appear again, I'm afraid none of us will be able to withstand it. By then, we will all be chased out of the Tianling god realm. A burly man said in a low voice. The black sword aura in the crater was still pouring back into the Long Yuan sword. As far as the eye could see, it had already become a golden sea of fire. Not necessarily. The new master chosen by the Long Yuan sword won't be threatened by these powers. Another man beside him spat out a mouthful of blood and gritted his teeth. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell silent for a moment. Wasn't this the reason why they insisted on waiting here? Yang Qin's eyes flashed, and she asked softly, "Senior brothers, your injuries are quite serious. Why don't we wait?" The two men rejected her in unison. We won't give up until the last moment. The Long Yuan sword will try to choose a new master every 9 Tianlei. Now, it seems that no one has been chosen in the first 3 rounds. There's still a chance. That's right. If we run away because of fear, we will really be looked down upon. Qin, don't be afraid. I'm here to protect you. Yang Qin smiled gratefully. Ning Jiao looked on coldly, and a hint of sarcasm flashed across her eyes. During this period of time, every time they encountered danger, the two men would rush to the front, afraid that something would happen to Yang Qin. Until now, the two of them were covered in injuries, but Yang Qin was still unharmed. This Yang Qin had some tricks up her sleeve. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the two of them to be so dead set on risking their lives for her. At the end of the day, the Wanzheng competition was still a competition. However, The two of them were completely toyed with by Yang Qin. Yang Qin noticed Ning Jiaojiao's gaze and looked up at her. The two of them looked at each other for a moment before turning their gazes away. Just then, another Tianlei came crashing down. Silver light flashed. Violent energy spread out in all directions. Ning Jiaojiao was the first to bear the brunt. Her mind turned, and she immediately ran back. The bearded man who was standing behind her wanted to retreat as well, but he staggered and was one step too slow. It was this step that allowed Ning Jiaojiao to surpass him. He became the person closest to the sinkhole. In the next moment, his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. This meant that he had been eliminated. Yang Qin gave Ning Jiaojiao a warning glare. The corners of Ning Jiaojiao's lips curled into an arrogant arc, but it disappeared in an instant. What a pity! The bearded man was seriously injured and basically had no combat power left. A person who could no longer be of much help would be an eyesore if he stayed. Why not send him on his way? Ning Jiaojiao touched her face in satisfaction. Suddenly, she felt as if there was a cold gaze falling on her. She turned to look. A golden-haired young man was staring at her with a gaze as sharp as a knife. Under the gaze of that pair of eyes, everything she did just now seemed to have been seen through. Ning Jiaojiao instinctively looked away. However, that gaze still made her feel uneasy and uncomfortable. She asked seemingly unintentionally, "Who is that golden-haired young man? He looks familiar." Yang Qin sneered in her heart and didn't say anything. She still looked sad because her senior brother was eliminated. The lanky man patted her shoulder comfortingly. When he heard Ning Jiaojiao's words, he also took a look. "Isn't that the young man who bit someone the other day? Think his name is Chang Wanzhou?" Ning Jiaojiao finally had an impression. So it's him. She didn't know him, but why did he seem to have a grudge against her? Ning Jiaojiao was depressed, but she didn't intend to ask. She didn't want to miss out on the Long Yuan sword because of such a small matter. After a while, that gaze finally left, and she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The waiting time was always especially unbearable. Especially when it was accompanied by great danger, it was even more unbearable. When the 36th Tianlei fell, no one was selected. Instead, another two people were chased out because they couldn't withstand the pressure. One of them was the lanky man from the Purple Shao Sword sect. Yang Qin finally couldn't help but lean in front of Ning Jiaojiao and ask in a low voice, "What are you trying to do?" Ning Jiaojiao chuckled. "I'm helping you. With those two people here, how can you use your fists and legs? Now that they've all been eliminated, you don't have to hide anymore." Yang Qin sneered. "I don't know what you're talking about." Ning Jiaojiao didn't care. She didn't believe that Yang Qin could really pretend until the end. The others were getting more and more anxious. 4 rounds have already passed. Why hasn't the Long Yuan sword chosen a master? Let's wait a little longer. Once the divine weapon starts to awaken, it will definitely choose a new master. But what exactly is the golden flame below? The rumors about the Long Yuan sword didn't seem to mention this thing. How can such a mysterious and unfathomable place be guessed by us? Let's just wait patiently. Xuanji Square. A day and a night had passed. However, there were more people in the square than before. Jianghu was still in disguise. He stood in an inconspicuous corner and watched the situation on the square. Until now, most of the people had already been eliminated. However, the closer it was to the end, the more intense the competition was. He looked at the black jade board. There were only a few names on it. Suddenly, he fixed his gaze on one of the names on the list and asked, "Chu Lue is still inside?" The man behind him immediately said, "Including her, there are 13 people." Jianghu put one hand behind his back and gradually clenched it into a fist. Chu Lue was only a stage 3 warrior. Even if he had some ability, he should have already been eliminated. The lowest level of the remaining people should be at the peak of stage 5, right? Eldest young master is wise. And what? Jianghu asked impatiently. The man lowered his voice. And, among the remaining people, other than Chu Lue, they are all at the upper level of the Daijing Yuan meridian. Jiang Yuqing's pupils constricted. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 518. According to his original expectations at this time, the remaining people should all be geniuses with high-grade Daijing Yuan meridians. But Chu Luiyue remained until now? Could it be that there was something strange about her? Where is Mu Qinghe now? He asked. Eldest young master, didn't you ask Vice Admiral Mu to deal with that matter earlier? He shouldn't have come out at this time. He reminded him softly. Jiang Yuqing suddenly understood and rubbed his eyebrows. Perhaps he was really too tired these past few days. He even forgot about this matter. Ask him to go to Wanjin Garden. Wanjin Garden was a famous restaurant in Xiling City, known for its elegance and luxury. But only a few people knew that it was his territory. You mean now? Jiang Yuqing glanced at the black jade board and nodded slightly. Yes. I'll go now. With that he turned and left. Wan Hao, continue to send people to keep an eye on the situation here. If there's anything unusual, inform me immediately. Guan Hao thought for a moment and roughly guessed what he meant by unusual. Yes. When Jiang Yuqing arrived at Wanjin Garden, Mu Qinghe was already waiting in the room. Seeing Jiang Yuqing come in, he immediately stood up. Greetings, eldest young master. The deputy general of the Black Cavalry, who had always been cold and indifferent, was now very respectful to eldest young master Jiang. Jiang Yuqing sat down. Sit down too. Mu Qinghe hesitated for a moment. Seeing that he had poured 2 cups of tea, she also sat down. Guan Hao walked out, gently closed the door, and was responsible for guarding outside. Mu Qinghe lowered her eyes. Eldest young master, why did you summon me here in such a hurry today? Jiang Yuqing picked up the teacup and blew gently. The tea's fragrance assailed his nose. It's nothing important. I just have something to ask you. Please ask, eldest young master. I will tell you everything I know. Jiang Yuqing rubbed the teacup but didn't drink it. He just raised his eyes and glanced at Mu Qinghe. Chu Luiyue, did you bring him here? Mu Qinghe's hands on her knees curled up slightly, but her expression did not change. Everyone said that she came here with Jian Fengqi. What's going on? Mu Qinghe paused for a moment before she briefly explained the situation. Therefore, I came back first and asked Jian Fengqi to bring Chu Luiyue here. Jian Fengqi's name was left on the Wanzheng competition because there seemed to be a misunderstanding during the registration process. Jiang Yuqing curled his lips without a smile. Lu Xing has always disliked Jian Fengqi. He probably did it on purpose. He's so brainless. He's indeed the same as his master, Shangguan Wan. He didn't even think about it. Be it Shangguan Wan or Jiang Yuqing, neither of them would let Jian Fengqi do such a thing. He actually wanted to wait for an opportunity to take revenge. He didn't even know who could persuade Jian Fengqi to help. Mu Qinghe thought for a moment and said, This rumor seems to have spread. This rumor seems to have spread far and wide in West Hill. Why don't I send someone to... No need. It doesn't matter what those people think. The key now is Chu Luiyue. Mu Qinghe, when you came back, you didn't tell me that Chu Luiyue was hiding so many secrets. Jiang Yuqing put the teacup back on the table with a sound that was neither soft nor heavy. Mu Qinghe frowned slightly. I'm slow-witted. What does eldest young master mean? Jiang Yuqing smiled. Don't you know that she's still in the Tianling God realm? There were close to 200 people who entered. When I came, there were only 13 left. She's one of them. She only has an intermediate Daijing Yuan meridian and is only a stage 3 warrior. Why do you think she's still here? Mu Qinghe's eyes narrowed. He knew that Chu Luiyue was capable, but he didn't expect her to last until now. You're indeed from country Yao Chen? Jiang Yuqing said meaningfully. Mu Qinghe immediately stood up and bowed respectfully. Eldest young master is wise. Chu Luiyue is indeed capable. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought her to the Wanzheng competition. I didn't expect. There's no need to be nervous. Jiang Yuqing smiled and waved his hand, looking relaxed. The more you're like this, the happier the third princess will be when she finds out. Mu Qinghe lowered his eyes slightly and his voice was calm. There's another small matter that I'm a little curious about. Jiang Yuqing leaned forward and stared at Mu Qinghe. Don't you think that Chu Liyue's appearance is a little similar to someone's? He still had a smile on his face, and his voice was calm and gentle as if he was talking about something unimportant. Mu Qinghe's clothes fluttered, and she knelt on the ground. Eldest young master, I didn't mean it. It's just that country Yaochen only has this young genius with the Daijing Yuan meridian, so I had no choice but to bring her back. Otherwise, there's no reason for me to continue staying in country Yaochen. Jiang Yuqing stared at him with a gaze as sharp as a knife. The room fell into a long silence. After some time, Jiang Yuqing suddenly laughed. I'm just saying it casually. Why are you so nervous? In fact, it's only 30% similar. There are so many similar people in this world, so there's nothing to be surprised about. In fact, he had already sent people to secretly investigate Chu Liyue. Based on the information he had received so far, there was no problem with Chu Liyue's identity. Most importantly, she was indeed only 14 years old. Mu Qinghe heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Thank you, eldest young master. Jiang Yuqing smiled and leaned back in his chair. This is just a coincidence. If there were other candidates, why would you choose Chu Liyue? After all, your old master was really devoted to you. Mu Qinghe's head suddenly hit the ground. From the beginning to the end, I only have one master, eldest young master. His head was on the cold floor, and it seemed to have chilled his heart. After a short and suffocating silence, Jiang Yuqing finally stood up, personally helped him up, and warmly said, You're too young. What are you doing? I've always trusted you the most. Mu Qinghe stood up. Thank you, eldest young master. There was a clear bruise on his forehead, which showed how hard he had knocked just now. You can go back first. Just continue to do what I told you before. Don't worry about anything else. This was a warning to him that he was not allowed to interfere in the Wanzheng conference. Yes. After Jiang Yuqing finished speaking, he left. After a long time, Mu Qinghe slowly exhaled. He looked at the 2 cups of tea on the table. Jiang Yuqing's cup had not been touched from beginning to end. He stood there for a long time. Hong Yao had appeared on his shoulder at some point. It had always been lively, but at this moment, it was much more listless and silent. Mu Qinghe closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his eyes had returned to calmness. Then he left. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 5:19. Time passed slowly. There was dead silence in the main hall. Chu Liyue was highly focused as she stared at the huge Xian formation. When the 2 forces were confronting each other, she had already started to silently memorize the path of the Heaven Path's aura on the Xian formation. However, the pressure of a level 9 Xian formation was too strong for her now, so this process was very taxing on her. Not only was her mind exhausted, but her force was also depleting quickly. Hence, Chu Liyue could only watch as she replenished her force. Fortunately, the water droplet had already stored countless force, so it could continuously flow out and spread to her limbs and bones. At first, this process was more painful, but after a few times, Chu Liyue gradually got used to it. Her flesh, blood, and bones were rapidly becoming stronger as the origin power washed through her body. Even she did not realize that the aura around her was constantly strengthening. The legendary 3-eyed eagle looked at Chu Liyue, and an obscure light flashed across its eyes. This kind of cultivation method had very high requirements for the cultivator, and ordinary people could not tolerate it. However, not only did Chu Liyue tolerate it, but she also seemed to be getting more relaxed. Her potential was even stronger than what she had shown before. It turned its gaze and looked at the heavenly square cauldron that was quietly floating in midair. Now, it finally understood why the heavenly square cauldron chose her. Chu Liyue focused all her attention on the Xian formation and completely forgot about the time. In her mind, a rough outline of the Xian formation was gradually sketched out. On the other side, Chu Liyue had already forgotten herself, But the people waiting outside the crater were still enduring with difficulty. As time passed, the Long Yuan sword summoned more and more heaven paths, and its aura and pressure became stronger. They had already retreated dozens of miles from their initial position. Furthermore, 2 more people were eliminated one after another. Only half of the original 10 people were left. However, the Long Yuan sword had no intention of choosing a new master. No one was chosen in the 5th and 6th rounds, and now there were only 2 chances left. They did not show it on their faces, but they were all secretly anxious. There is no day or night here, and I wonder how much time has passed, Yang Qiner muttered. The others didn't say anything. When Chang Wanzhou heard this, he suddenly thought of something and his expression changed slightly. He closed his eyes and examined the situation in his body. A moment later he opened his eyes. His beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. The medicinal effect of the pill he had eaten earlier seemed to have completely taken effect. He didn't know if it was because the environment here was different from the outside world or because it was already time. He glanced at the sinkhole. From here, one could only see the gigantic dragon abyss sword and the crazily burning golden flames. Chu Luiyue still did not appear. After thinking for a while, he took out a jade bottle and swallowed the second pill. Xuanji Square. After 2 days, there were only 9 names left on the black jade board. Everyone guessed that at this rate, the competition would be over in a few days. Surprisingly, no one was eliminated on the 3rd day. The waiting crowd gradually became impatient. All kinds of rumors were spreading like wildfire. It's already been 3 days. Why haven't the remaining 9 people come out? Could something have happened to them? That's the Tianling God realm. What kind of accident could happen? Didn't you see that those who were eliminated were all sent out alive? Let's not worry about it. Can't we just treat it as a show? That's true. At the end of the day, the sects in Xiling City care about who wins and who loses the most, right? It has nothing to do with us. But then again, it was said that there might be many rare treasures hidden in the Tianling God realm, but those who were chased out before, they were all half dead. There's an 80% chance that they have nothing to do with the treasures. Do you guys think that the Tianling God realm is just a dangerous place without any treasures? That's the place where Taizu passed away. Rumor has it that he once left a heavenly Dao behind. How can there be nothing? Besides, how can opportunities be obtained so easily? Who knows, it might all be given to one person in the end. There are still 9 people left. I wonder who will be so lucky. But that Chu Luiyue is actually still here. This is really unexpected. In a private room on the 2nd floor of Spring Breeze Restaurant, a woman in white was holding a pipa and playing it. She had a slim figure like a willow branch swaying in the wind. Her face was covered by a veil, revealing only a pair of gentle eyes. But one could still tell that she was a rare beauty. She played the pipa with a noisy mix of notes. Pearls big and small fell on a jade plate. Behind the screen was a tall figure lying diagonally. Suddenly, the woman in white stopped playing. The room instantly quieted down. After a while, the man behind the screen spoke lazily. "Little Lu, why did you suddenly stop playing?" The woman in white stood up and curtsied. "Young Master Jian's heart isn't here today. No matter how much I play, it won't enter your ears. Let's just leave it at that." Her voice was very gentle and pleasant, but in Jian Fengqi's ears, it seemed to contain killing intent. He coughed. "Little Lu, you've misunderstood. How could I, Jian Fengqi? I won't play the lute to a cow." The woman in white suddenly interrupted Jian Fengqi rudely. "This is really asking for my life." Jian Fengqi immediately understood the situation and said, "Little Lu, go and rest first. Don't tire yourself out." The woman in white walked around the screen with the pipa in her arms and walked over. She sneered. "Jian Fengqi, I've played for you for so long. Is there any progress on the matter I asked you to do?" Jian Fengqi, the famous little tyrant of Xiling City, had always been arrogant and unbridled. But in front of this woman in white, he seemed to be subconsciously inferior. His handsome face was scrunched up. "If I didn't find anything, I wouldn't have dared to step into Chun Feng restaurant." The woman in white's eyes lit up. That's more like it. Then tell me, before she finished speaking, a series of footsteps suddenly came from outside. Fengqi, Fengqi. A familiar young man's voice sounded. The two people in the room were stunned. Jian Fengqi said, "It's Yuan Jinghong." The woman in white gritted her teeth. "I know. He came at the right time." With that, she quickly retreated behind the screen. The door was immediately opened. Yuan Jinghong rushed in hurriedly. "Fengqi, do you know?" Seeing the woman in white in the room, he suddenly stuttered. "Miss Luo, I didn't expect you to be here too." Shui Luo bowed to the screen. "Then I'll take my leave first." She took a few steps back and walked to Yuan Jinghong's side and bowed. Yuan Jinghong's ears were red as he said, "Take care, Miss Lu. What are you doing here?" Jian Fengqi walked out from behind the screen. He crossed his arms and looked at him impatiently. Yuan Jinghong then remembered his purpose of coming and looked excited. "You still don't know? Chu Luiwei, who you brought, is now in the top 8 of the Wanzheng competition. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 520. Jian Fengqi was stunned for a moment before he realized what he was talking about. Wanzheng competition? Top 8? Looking at Jian Fengqi's expression, Yuan Jinghong's smile gradually froze. "Don't tell me you don't care about this at all?" Jian Fengqi shrugged lazily. "Isn't it just a competition? Do you have to care so much? Especially since this was a competition requested by Shangguan Wan and Jianghu. Not only did he not care, but he also looked down on it. If not for the sake of helping Mu Qinghe, he would not have gotten involved in this matter at all. In the past few days, he had been eating, drinking, and having fun in Shilin City. How could he have the leisure to think about anything else? Yuan Jinghong clicked his tongue. "To think that you were the one who brought her here." Jian Fengqi thought that this person was brought here by Mu Qinghe. It really had nothing to do with him. "Why isn't the competition over yet?" Yuan Jinghong looked at him disdainfully. "Looks like you really don't care about this at all. I really don't know why you brought this girl here. This competition has already been going on for 4 days. Today is the 5th day. There were nearly 200 people participating in the official competition, and now there are only 8 left." Without waiting for Jian Fengqi to explain, he continued. "Now, all the major casinos in Shilin City have started to place bets on who will come in first." Hearing this, Jian Fengqi immediately perked up. "Really?" Meeting Yuan Jinghong's disdainful gaze, Jian Fengqi coughed. "Then, what's the odds for that girl?" "Of course it's the highest. She's the lowest level among the 8. "No, she's the lowest level among the contestants." As Yuan Jinghong spoke, he couldn't help but rub his chin. "Sigh, speaking of which, this girl is really quite impressive. I don't think she's relying on luck to last until now. Let's not talk about other things, but your eye for choosing people is pretty good." Jian Fengqi's lips curled into a sinister smile, with a hint of complacency. Of course. Since he was in a rush, he did not explain further. "You called me here today just to say this?" Jian Fengqi changed the topic and asked. "Achoo!" Yuan Jinghong suddenly sneezed loudly. He rubbed his nose. "Hey, who's thinking of this young master?" Jian Fengqi looked at him sympathetically. Little Lu was suddenly interrupted. By now, she had probably cursed all 8 generations of Yuan Jinghong's ancestors. "Hee hee, I'm here to ask you about the girl you brought with you. How far do you think she can go?" Yuan Jinghong rubbed his hands. "I've been tight on cash recently, so I wanted to see if I could take advantage of this opportunity to win. If you say she can make it to 8th place, then I'll bet on 8th place. If you say 7th, then I'll bet on 7th. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. The higher the ranking, the higher the payout. Yuan Jinghong nodded. "What's the payout for her getting 1st place?" Yuan Jinghong said a number. Jian Fengqi turned around and walked outside. "Fengqi, where are you going?" Yuan Jinghong hurriedly got up and followed him. Jian Fengqi didn't even turn back. "To make a fortune." The Wanzheng competition was still ongoing, and everyone in Xiling City seemed to be focused on this competition. A piece of gossip spread throughout the entire Xiling overnight. It was said that Dragon Teeth Mountain's young master, Jian Fengqi, went to all the casinos in Xiling City and bet tens of thousands of gold coins on Chu Luiwei winning first place in the Wanzheng competition. This was like pouring another pot of oil on the fire. Everyone was originally filled with curiosity and anticipation for the Wanzheng competition because it involved the Tianling God realm. Jian Fengqi's actions caused even more commotion. Jian Fengqi's style of doing things was well known in Xiling City for not following the rules and being carefree and unrestrained. But this action still made countless people's jaws drop. Because in everyone's opinion, it was impossible for Chu Luiwei to get first place. Jian Fengqi's actions were almost the same as burning money. Even if he was rich, he couldn't afford to spend like this. If it weren't for some special reason, would he do this? Hence, everyone in Xiling knew that Jian Fengqi had taken a liking to Chu Luiwei, whom he brought back. Jian Fengqi was known for being a playboy, but this was the first time he had done such a big thing. It instantly attracted countless guesses. Could it be that the usually playboy young Master Jian is finally going to stop this time? Countless women felt sad because of this. 100 Herbs Building. A few women were strolling around the exhibition hall on the first floor, whispering to each other. I heard that Chu Luiwei was brought back by Jian Fengqi from outside Heaven's Canopy. She doesn't seem to have a good background. I really don't know what he sees in her. Her background is indeed not good, but you haven't seen her in person, right? I saw her from afar that day, and she is indeed a rare beauty. No wonder Jian Fengqi is so infatuated with her. So what if she's beautiful? There are so many beautiful women in this world. I think Jian Fengqi is just temporarily infatuated. He will wake up after some time. Could it be that she can really enter Dragon Teeth Mountain and become the young mistress? The page boy standing behind the crystal cabinet finally couldn't help but ask, "May I ask if the Chu Luiwei you mentioned just now is the one who just came to Xiling recently?" The women looked at each other and nodded in confusion. What's wrong? The page boy smiled courteously. I don't know where you heard these rumors from, but they are indeed outrageous. Miss Chu is an honored guest of the Mu clan. How could she be related to young Master Jian? One of the women asked. Which Mu clan? There is only one Mu clan in Xiling City. The page boy reminded. A few days ago, when Miss Chu came here, she was accompanied by Vice Admiral Mu's trusted aide, Lieutenant Duan. Everyone in our 100 Herbs building can see it clearly. This time, the women's expressions changed. Chu Luiwei was actually related to that killing god? Honored guest. What kind of honored guest could she be to make Mu Qinghe value her so much? After all, he didn't even have half a woman in his residence. Is what you said true? Another woman stepped forward and asked anxiously. The page boy pointed upstairs. Of course. That day, Miss Chu bought a lot of things back, and the servants who accompanied her were directly promoted to the second floor. Who in 100 Herbs building wasn't envious? Now, everyone was waiting for Chu Luiwei to come to their door again. The women looked at each other, and one of them covered her mouth and smiled. This Chu Luiwei is really amazing. Not only can she make young Master Jian spend a lot of money for her, she can also make Vice Admiral Mu make an exception for her. She is really amazing. The page boy's expression changed slightly. Miss, please be careful with your words. The woman's smile became even more cheerful. What? Even the 100 Herbs building has become her territory? Can't I even say a word? Miss Chu is an honored guest of our 100 Herbs building with a black gold card. Naturally, we have to prioritize Miss Chu. A clear man's voice suddenly sounded. Everyone turned around. All the page boys on the first floor saluted in unison. Greetings, Manager Yu. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 521. It turned out that this person was the manager of 100 Herbs building. Yu Ling, wasn't he always elusive and elusive? It was said that even some of the bigwigs in Xiling City had to send an invitation a month in advance if they wanted to visit him. They might not even be able to meet him. Logically speaking, a mere manager of a medicinal herb store shouldn't have a status as high as these people, let alone be arrogant in front of them. However, Yu Ling was different. Because he was in charge of 100 Herbs building. Things were precious when they were rare. He had things that others didn't have, so he naturally had an advantage over others. In Xiling City, no one wanted to offend 100 Herbs building. Because no one could guarantee that they wouldn't need to buy medicinal herbs from 100 Herbs building for the rest of their lives. Anyone who knew what was good for them wouldn't ask for a rebuff here. Of course, these women couldn't afford to offend Yu Ling, so they immediately hesitated and apologized sincerely. So sorry. Yu Ling nodded and smiled slightly. I believe you won't make such a mistake again in the future. The women breathed a sigh of relief together. However, before they could speak, they saw Yu Ling speak to the servant beside them. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and ask these ladies to leave. The servant shuddered and hurriedly said, Yes, yes. As he spoke, he had already quickly bypassed the crystal cabinet and walked to the front of the women. He raised his hand and pointed to the door. Ladies, please. This. Manager Yu, what do you mean? One of the women asked with a blank face. We haven't bought our things yet. Yu Ling's smile didn't change. I know. It was obvious that he wanted to drive them out. The servant immediately urged, Ladies, please. Although the women were full of anger, they didn't dare to really cause trouble in 100 Herbs building, so they could only leave angrily. Let's go. At the door, one of the women finally couldn't hold back and looked back. Suppressing her anger, she said, I didn't expect 100 Herbs building to treat customers like this. Next time, even if you invite us, we won't come. Yu Ling smiled and said, Ladies, don't worry about this problem. From today onwards, 100 Herbs building won't do business with you. As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. The few women who were about to step out of the store all stopped and looked at Yu Ling in shock. The woman who spoke was also frightened. General Manager Yu, what do you mean by this? It's the literal meaning. You have openly criticized and humiliated our black gold card VIPs in the 100 Herbs building. Naturally, we have to show our attitude. Please take a detour when you come here in the future. Yu Ling's tone was very gentle, but the words he said were very cold and ruthless. All right. It's the same for the families of the ladies. The exhibition hall on the first floor was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Yu Ling was really ruthless. He actually cut off the entire family's business. Who knew what kind of punishment these women would have to endure when they returned? Even if they said bad things about Chu Luiwei, this was too much. Although some people thought so, no one was stupid enough to speak up for these people. What a joke! Who would be so brainless as to offend Yu Ling for an unrelated person? The few women obviously realized that something was wrong. They anxiously begged, and 2 of them even cried. But Yu Ling was too lazy to pay attention to them and turned around. A few manservants stepped forward and chased the women out of the room. They lingered outside the door for a long time, attracting a lot of attention. But they couldn't say the reason, so they could only leave in embarrassment. Yu Ling's gaze swept across the people standing in the exhibition hall on the first floor and smiled, Sorry to disturb you. I'll prepare a small gift for you later. Please forgive me. Everyone hurriedly responded happily. Since Yu Ling had done so, they definitely had to give face. After comforting everyone, Yu Ling walked upstairs. He walked to the 3rd floor alone. A middle-aged man greeted him. General Manager, why did you suddenly come today? This person was Cui Fangyi, the Deputy General Manager of the 100 Herbs building. Yu Ling walked into his room on the 3rd floor, and the middle-aged man followed him in. After closing the door, Yu Ling suddenly exhaled, and his face was full of lingering fear. Fortunately, I didn't come too late. Cui Fangyi was confused. What did you say? Yu Ling shook his head, walked over and sat down before saying, You should know what happened downstairs. If there are similar things in the future, deal with it like this. Cui Fangyi frowned. You mean, if there are any people who humiliate the black gold card in the future, we won't do business with them? You haven't set such a rule before. Are you really going to do this? Those people were a little too much, but they didn't know their crime. Yu Ling raised his eyes and glanced at him. Why do you think I came here in a hurry today? Cui Fangyi was stunned for a moment and suddenly opened his eyes in shock. Don't tell me you came here specifically for Chu, Yu Ling nodded. I just received the news today. He pointed upwards. From now on, this Miss Chu will be an esteemed guest of our 100 Herbs building. Cui Fangyi took a breath of cold air. Who is Chu Luiyue? I should have received the news a few days ago, but I was delayed by something on the way, so I received it. Yu Ling shook his head with a wry smile. I didn't expect that Miss Chu had already come to the 100 Herbs building a few days later. However, this is good. Now that she is a VIP of the Black Gold card, she can be a good excuse. Although Cui Fangyi was still shocked, he immediately responded. Yes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 522. Tianling God Realm. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged in the magnificent hall, still staring at the huge Xian formation not far away. She had completely ignored everything around her. There was only one thought in her mind, to decipher this Xian formation. She already had a rough outline in her mind. As time passed, the outline gradually became clearer. This was the Xian formation that Chu Luiyue imitated in her mind. Of course, compared to the real Xian formation, this small ball was nothing. But Chu Luiyue didn't really want to completely copy it. For the current her, it was simply impossible for her to do so. So, she was actually trying her best to depict the trajectory of the previous heavenly Tao and try to find a pattern from it. At a certain moment, she finally made up her mind. Brilliant starlight burst out from her eyes. That's it. Go! That water droplet that contained the aura of the heavenly Tao rushed toward a certain point on the Xian formation. Boom! Two incomparably powerful forces collided with each other. A loud sound was heard. It hit the target. Chu Luiyue was elated. The next moment, with the point of impact as the center, a visible energy wave started to spread in all directions. The streams of light that were close to it were instantly crushed. It destroyed everything in its path. The huge Xian formation had officially collapsed. At the same time, the few people outside the crater continued to wait. There were only 4 people left. Chang Wanzhou, Ning Jiaojiao, Yang Qin, and the burly man named Chou Ding. Boom! Another bolt of heavenly lightning struck. The few of them stared at the long yuan sword with visible nervousness on their faces. Because this was already the 80th Tianlei. The long yuan sword still hadn't chosen a master. So, there was only one last chance left. Ning Jiaojiao couldn't help but look at Chang Wanzhou in the distance. Not long ago, this blonde young man actually broke through to become a stage 6 warrior here. She was jealous and resentful. She couldn't understand how Chang Wanzhou could break through so smoothly at such a tense time. What she did not know was that Chang Wanzhou's attention was not on the long yuan sword. From beginning to end, there was only one thing on his mind, to find Chu Luiyue. He could sense that she was under the golden flames, so he waited patiently. While he was waiting, he reckoned that he had already used the 3rd pill. It was also because of the effects of these 3 pills that the evil frost chi in his body was dispelled, giving him the opportunity to break through. Suddenly, a turbulent fluctuation came from the sinkhole. This movement immediately attracted the attention of several people. Chou Ding rose into the air without hesitation. Look at the sinkhole. However, what he saw shocked him to the core. How could this be? The golden flames that originally filled the sinkhole actually began to surge back crazily. It was as if something was crazily devouring it from below. However, the last Tianlei on the long yuan sword did not descend. The entire hull began to shake. The dust on countless treasures fell, the beads began to roll around, and the jade stones that were piled up into a mountain shook. The water beads shattered silently, and tens of thousands of streams of light disintegrated at the same time. The dazzling light almost blinded Chu Luiyue. It was almost a crushing advantage. A look of shock flashed across the legendary three-eyed eagle's eyes. The power of the heavenly Tao in Chu Luiyue's body was already so strong. Although it was the one who suggested to let Chu Luiyue try to use the heavenly Tao to deal with the heavenly Tao, it did not have much hope. After all, Chu Liuyue's current realm had not broken through to become a Stage 4 warrior. Even if her true strength was comparable to a Stage 5 warrior, it was almost impossible for her to break through a level 9 Xian formation. However, the power of the heavenly Tao that she displayed now far exceeded that of the Xian formation. Just the heavenly Tao in her body should not be able to achieve such power. It was that water bead. That water bead seemed to contain a power that could go against the heavenly Tao. The legendary three-eyed eagle was shocked by this sudden thought. It looked up again and saw that the water bead had scattered into countless tiny water droplets and scattered in various parts of the Xian formation. The entire Xian formation collapsed irreversibly. It turned into countless stars and scattered in all directions. When the last stream of light was destroyed, Chu Liyue immediately had a thought. A transparent karmic fire flew out from the heavenly square cauldron and covered the sky as it flew toward the half of the corpse. The huge corpse was immediately enveloped. In the next moment, the corpse was slowly lifted up by the transparent karmic fire. At this moment, golden flames suddenly surged from the surroundings and poured into the corpse crazily. Chu Liyue was slightly shocked. The legendary three-eyed eagle immediately said in a low voice, "That's the power of the great phoenix dragon." Previously, it must have sensed that the Long Yuan sword was about to awaken, so this power spread out in all directions, trying to break free from this suppression. Now that you want to take the corpse away, this power naturally surged back. Does this great phoenix dragon's corpse still have a soul? Chu Liyue asked doubtfully. That's not it. This is just the last remnant of the great phoenix dragon's consciousness. If this great phoenix dragon still had half of its soul, it would not be in this situation. Chu Liyue heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he felt a little emotional. The ancient divine beast was indeed extraordinary. It had been dead for so long, but in this corpse, there was still such a powerful consciousness. I wonder how strong the great phoenix dragon is when it's alive. As the golden flames surged back, the corpse became even more lustrous and translucent. When the last cluster of golden flames disappeared into the corpse, the heavenly square cauldron finally swallowed it forcefully. Through the transparent heavenly square cauldron, one could still clearly see the corpse falling into it. At the same time, the Xian formation had completely dissipated. Countless tiny water droplets gathered back into a water bead, containing the starlight, and returned to Chu Liyue's body. Chu Liyue stood up and waved his hand lightly, wanting to recall the heavenly square cauldron. However, the heavenly square cauldron stopped in midair and did not move at all. Chu Liyue was stunned for a moment and tried again. The heavenly square cauldron still did not move at all. A sense of uneasiness suddenly surged from the bottom of her heart. At this moment, an illusory figure suddenly appeared in the middle of the hall. "Are you leaving after taking my things?" A deep man's voice sounded. Every word was like a clap of thunder in her ears. It made one's heart tremble. Chu Liyue's internal organs seemed to have been crushed by this invisible pressure. It was extremely painful. A strong smell of blood suddenly surged up her throat. She did not doubt that if the other party wanted to, he could take her life now. This person was the strongest person she had ever met in her 2 lives. The man waved his hand, and the heavenly square cauldron quickly shrank and landed in his palm. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 523. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to shrink as well. That man looked to be around 30 years old. He was tall, had broad shoulders and a narrow waist. He wore a long dark green robe and was like a sword that had yet to be unsheathed, deep and reserved. However, when she saw his face clearly, Chu Liyue suddenly widened her eyes. His eyebrows were slanted to his temples, his nose bridge was high, his cheeks were angular, and his pair of black jade-like eyes were incomparably deep. He was really handsome. However, what shocked Chu Liyue wasn't his outstanding appearance, but, this is the face of a Taizu. In the ancestral hall of the Tianling dynasty's royal family, there was a portrait of a Taizu. This man's face was exactly the same as the portrait of a Taizu. No, it should be said that the portrait was exactly the same as this man. Chu Liuyue's mind went blank for a moment. Her heart beat violently, almost causing her eardrums to hurt. This is Etaizu? This is Etaizu. That man carefully examined the heavenly square cauldron in his hand for a while, and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. I couldn't tell that a little girl like you really has a rare treasure on you. As he spoke, he looked up at Chu Liyue and saw that this little girl was staring at him in a daze as if she had lost her mind. He suddenly couldn't help but laugh. What's with your expression? I was just curious and took it to take a look. It's not like I want to snatch it from you. As he spoke, he raised his hand, and the heavenly square cauldron flew in front of Chu Liyue. Since you've already broken the Xian formation I set up and taken this thing away, then it's yours. I won't take it back. Chu Liyue instantly felt the pressure on her body dissipate. She stretched out her hands stiffly and took back the heavenly square cauldron, but her eyes were still staring at that man in a daze. Taizu. She actually saw a Taizu. Even in her previous life, she had always planned to enter the Tianling God realm, but she had never thought that she would actually be able to see Taizu. Her heart seemed to be filled with a warm current, and the tip of her nose was slightly sour. The man thought that the girl wouldn't look at him like that after he returned the item. Unexpectedly, not only was she still watching, but her eyes were also red. Looking at that pair of bright red rabbit-like eyes, he immediately felt a headache coming on. Hey, little girl, why are you crying? Sheng Guanjing was not afraid of anything in his life. The only thing he was afraid of was seeing someone cry. Moreover, this person was a young lady. Wasn't he just joking? Why did this girl make it seem like he had bullied her? He had only symbolically exerted his pressure, and it would not hurt this girl at all. Moreover, she had the power of the heavenly Tao in her body, so there was no need to worry. Don't cry. Didn't I say that this thing is already yours? Sheng Guanjing was a little flustered. How about, you take all the treasures here with you? Is that okay? There's no one in this world who doesn't like money, right? Only then did Chu Liyue regain her senses, and her lips trembled slightly. Thank you, senior. The two words, Taizu, almost slipped out of her mouth. Although she tried her best to make herself look calm, her slightly trembling voice revealed that her emotions were still fluctuating at this time. Sheng Guanjing heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that this girl had finally spoken. However, a faint doubt arose in his heart. This girl's reaction to me seems a little too much. Perhaps it's because I appeared too suddenly? Thinking of this, he waved his hand and smiled casually. You don't have to be afraid. I'm just a remnant consciousness stored in the Long Yuan sword. Chu Liyue nodded slightly, but she was a little disappointed. So this is not Taizu's soul. What's your name? Where are you from? How did you get in? Seeing that she had returned to normal, Sheng Guanjing asked. In the past, only people from the Tianling dynasty's royal family could enter the Tianling God realm. This girl clearly doesn't have the bloodline of the Tianling dynasty. Furthermore, he knew that many people had come outside, and they were all like this. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and said seriously, I'm Chu Liyue. I'm Chu Liyue, and I'm from country Yaochen outside of Heaven's Canopy. I came to the Tianling God realm this time because of the Wanzheng competition. After that, she briefly explained the cause and effect of the matter. Sheng Guanjing frowned when he heard the end. He didn't expect that after 1,000 years, the people of the Tianling royal family would actually act so recklessly. This wasn't because he didn't want people outside the Tianling royal family to enter, but this so-called Wanzheng competition clearly had other motives. Most people wouldn't be able to last too long here. Instead, they might be injured because of this extremely dangerous environment. Wasn't that the case for the previous ones? You said that it was the third Princess Sheng Guanwan and her husband who are now in power. What did you say? Sheng Guanjing asked. Yes. Do you know if there's anything unusual about Sheng Guanwan? Chu Liyue hesitated for a moment. Of course, she knew what was wrong with Sheng Guanwan. Her Yuan meridian had been destroyed more than a year ago. If it was an ordinary injury, there were plenty of celestial physicians in the Tianling dynasty who could treat it. However, Shangguan Wan's Yuan meridian was burned by her Tianjing Yuan meridian. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to recover. However, in the past few days in Xiling, after secretly asking around, she was surprised to find that the news of Shangguan Wan's Yuan meridian being destroyed hadn't spread. Thinking about it carefully, it made sense. If others knew that her Yuan meridian was damaged and couldn't be repaired, she definitely wouldn't be able to sit firmly in her current position. Although she didn't know what method she used, she had indeed successfully hidden it from everyone. Oh right, except for Jianghu. What I mean is there a problem with her cultivation? Shangguan Jing asked in more detail. Chu Luiyue calmed down and nodded. I only heard that there seems to be a problem with her Yuan meridian. No wonder. Shangguan Jing looked as if he had expected it. Chu Luiyue was even more puzzled. From the looks of it, Taizu actually seemed to know why Shangguan Wan was holding this Wanzheng competition. Senior, what do you mean by this? She asked softly. Shangguan Jing's expression became much more serious. He placed his hands behind his back, shook his head, and sighed. Forget it, forget it. It's good that you don't know these things. In short, it's a disgrace for the Tianling royal family to have such an evil descendant. Chu Luiyue wanted to ask again, but after thinking about it, she didn't say anything. Shangguan Jing suddenly thought of something and looked her up and down. Speaking of which, how did you get into this hall? Chu Luiyue glanced at the three-eyed eagle beside her and coughed in embarrassment. I won't hide it from you, senior. I'm actually here for this skeleton this time. The divine beast I contracted only has a soul. I wanted to help it recover its physical body, so I barged in. That's not what I'm talking about. Shangguan Jing's expression was a little strange. You might not know, but the door of this hall can only be opened by people with the bloodline of the Tianling royal family. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 524. Chu Luiyue was dazed as if someone had hit her head on with a stick. Only people with the Tianling royal family's bloodline could enter. How did she get in? Even though she was Shangguan Yu, her body had already been replaced by Chu Luiyue's. It was impossible for them to have the same bloodline. She remembered clearly that the door had appeared directly in the golden flames. What happened? Suddenly, her heart skipped a beat. It was the Black Pyramid. At that time, she didn't do anything. The Black Pyramid flew out on its own, and the door opened. There was also that subtle connection between them. From the beginning to the end, the Black Pyramid had been the one controlling everything. Chu Luiyue's heart was in a mess. The Black Pyramid was something from country Yao Chen's imperial mausoleum. How was it related to the Tianling dynasty? There seemed to be a cloud of fog in front of her, preventing her from seeing what was happening. I don't know either, Chu Luiyue muttered softly. Shangguan Jing looked at her expression and confirmed that she really didn't know anything. He smiled. You have a lot of treasures on you. One of them seems to be related to the Tianling dynasty. Chu Luiyue paused. You know, this is my territory. Of course, no one knows better than me how you got in. Shangguan Jing shook his head with a smile. This girl looks quite smart, and her talent and strength are very good. Why is she a little dazed? He pointed with his finger. The Black Pyramid in Chu Luiyue's body flew out instantly. Senior, Chu Luiyue's heart tightened, but when she thought that Taizu might be able to see through the secret, she swallowed her words. Shangguan Jing raised his hand to take the Black Pyramid. A hidden and powerful pressure suddenly erupted from it. Shangguan Jing stopped. The seal on it. This seal was extremely powerful. Even he couldn't break it. His expression was slightly restrained as he looked over. At first glance, this small Black Pyramid didn't seem to be anything special. However, when one got closer, they could feel the tyrannical aura of the seal. Not to mention the little girl in front of him, even in the entire Tianling dynasty, there was probably no one with such strength. Do you know who placed the seal on it? He looked at Chu Luiyue with an extremely solemn expression. Chu Luiyue seemed to have sensed something. He nodded and then shook his head. I've only heard that person's voice, but I've never seen him. Was there something wrong with the seal? Sheng Guanjing was silent for a moment. In fact, he could feel that there was an extremely familiar aura in the Black Pyramid, but because of the seal, he couldn't investigate it more clearly. He really had no idea why the other party would spend so much effort to set up this seal. This should be the reason why this girl was able to come in. The person who laid down this seal is extremely powerful. He spoke slowly. Chu Luiwen nodded in agreement. She was certain of this. However, to be able to make Taizu say this, the person should be even stronger than she had imagined. Sheng Guanjing pushed his palm, and the Black Pyramid flew back to Chu Luiwen. She took a closer look and didn't see anything unusual. You're young, but you've had a lot of opportunities. Sheng Guanjing sighed. Whether it was the mysterious and powerful item she had on her or the unfathomable powerhouse she had met, other people might not have luck in their entire lives, but she was only in her teens, and she had all of them. You must keep this thing well, Sheng Guanjing suddenly said seriously. Chu Luiwen nodded in confusion. Since you can come in here, you and I are somewhat fated. Originally, I planned to leave this Long Yuan sword to them. But now, it seems that it's better to give it to you. The Tianling royal family is already in such a mess. With this Long Yuan sword, it might even increase their arrogance. Chu Luiwen was stunned for a moment. Senior Jimmy? But this Long Yuan sword the Long Yuan sword should be passed down to someone with the Tianling royal family's bloodline. Now that she was just an outsider, Taizu actually planned to do this. Sheng Guanjing suddenly gave a sly smile. Lass, you clearly guessed my identity long ago. Why are you pretending not to know? This Long Yuan sword is mine to begin with. I can give it to whoever I want. He crossed his arms and looked at Chu Luiwen. Also, for some reason when I saw you, I felt very close to you. Perhaps this is fate? If he didn't really like this lass, he wouldn't have said so much to her here. Chu Luiwen hesitated for a while. It would be a lie to say that she didn't want the Long Yuan sword. What identity should she accept it with now? As if seeing Chu Luiwen's dilemma, Sheng Guanjing waved his hand and smiled. You don't have to worry about anything else. Because the Long Yuan sword also chose you. Chu Luiwen looked up in shock. What? Sheng Guanjing smiled and shook his head. Otherwise, why do you think the last Tianlei of the Long Yuan sword hasn't fallen yet? It's waiting for me. Chu Luiwen seemed to have boiling magma rolling between her chest and abdomen, causing her entire body to tremble slightly. She suddenly knelt down on both knees and bowed sincerely and respectfully. Junior. Chu Luiwen kneels and thanks. Taizu. Her head rested on the gorgeous, ice-cold, jade-paved floor. A teardrop fell silently. Boom. A loud crash could be heard. The people who were waiting outside the sinkhole all looked up at the same time. The scorching sun in the sky suddenly fell and rushed toward the Long Yuan sword. The last bolt of heavenly thunder arrived. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 525. The scorching sun, wrapped in intense and dazzling light and heat, streaked across the sky. Finally, it landed on the Long Yuan sword's hilt. Boom! Countless streams of light scattered, and the huge black sword was instantly enveloped by the dazzling light. The sky lost the sun and quickly darkened. The Long Yuan sword instantly became the brightest and most powerful existence in this world. A cluster of flames suddenly emerged from the cracked ground. The terrifying heat spread along the Long Yuan sword. Immediately after, more and more flames started to emerge from the ground. They burned fiercely. The surrounding temperature started to rise crazily. Quick, let's go. Cho Ding panicked and hurriedly retreated. But just as he took 2 steps back, he felt a burning pain. He turned around to take a look, only to realize that flames had appeared behind him at some point in time. The clothes on his back immediately burned. The terrifying pain caused his facial features to distort. He hurriedly tore off his clothes. But there were already more than a dozen large blisters on his back. Although he couldn't see the situation on his body, the pain was real. He didn't care about anything else and started to quickly escape. Whoever wanted to continue waiting could do so themselves. Perhaps the long yuan sword wouldn't come, but death. He simply crushed the bronze pearl in his hand. The next moment, his figure immediately disappeared from the spot. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Ning Jiaojiao and Yang Qin were stunned when they saw this scene. No one expected that the long yuan sword's last Tianlei, which they had waited so long for, would be so terrifying. The two of them also retreated without hesitation. But their gazes were still fixed on the long yuan sword. The two of them looked at each other and saw the surging murderous intent in each other's eyes. Ning Jiaojiao laughed. The sky of the Tianling God realm is going to change. Yang Qin, are you still not leaving? Yang Qin's face no longer had the previous gentleness and shyness. She responded with a smile, but this smile was very fierce, making people who looked at it feel a chill in their hearts. You haven't left, so how can I leave? The 81st Tianlei of the long yuan sword has already descended and is about to choose a new master. I've been practicing swordsmanship since I was young, and I'll enter the purple Shao sword sect to cultivate in the future. On the other hand, you have nothing to do with swordsmanship. Do you think the long yuan sword will choose you? Ning Jiaojiao felt stifled in her heart. Before she came, she didn't expect the long yuan sword to awaken. But since he had caught up, how could he give up just like that? It was better to be safe than sorry. Yang Qin, you have nothing to be proud of. The long yuan sword was a divine weapon. If it only wanted to choose a sword practitioner as its new master, it would have chosen a long time ago. How could it be your turn? It was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Just as she finished speaking, another ball of flame appeared under her feet. Ning Jiaojiao tiptoed and was about to fly up. However, in the next moment, she was shocked to discover that she was actually unable to soar into the sky. How could this be? As she fled in a hurry, she cried out in alarm. Yang Qin also realized that something was wrong, and her expression changed drastically. If they were unable to fly, they would sooner or later be burned to death in this sea of fire. The two of them didn't have time to argue and began to dodge each other's attacks. However, more and more flames emerged from the ground, and there was no way to avoid them. Yang Qin suddenly threw her sword out and leaped into the air. In this way, he finally dodged the endless flames. Ning Jiaojiao secretly gritted her teeth. She waved her sleeves, and a green barrier instantly appeared in front of her. It enveloped her. Who wasn't prepared? The two of them were locked in a fierce fight, but on the other side, Chang Wanzhou didn't do anything. He only retreated a distance, but he was still looking in the direction of the crater. Moreover, he didn't have any defenses around him. Balls of flames began to burn around him. However, he looked as if nothing had happened. In fact, it wasn't that he didn't do anything. He was using the cold, evil energy in his body to block the corrosion of the flames. Only by looking closely would one be able to see that his skin was covered with a layer of frost that quickly melted away. This cycle repeated itself. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to withstand the continuous exchange of these two extreme powers, but this was nothing to Chang Wanzhou. The cold, evil energy in his body had accumulated for many years, and he was already used to it. Now that he could use the power of the flames to gradually melt the cold, evil energy in his body, he felt that it was a good thing. In addition, Chu Luiyue had already used pills to help him recuperate his body. His tolerance for the flames far exceeded that of ordinary people. There's something wrong with that Chang Wanzhou. Ning Jiaojiao noticed the situation at Chang Wanzhou's side and muttered softly. Compared to her and Yang Qin's sorry state, Chang Wanzhou looked more at ease. She thought of something and gave Yang Qin a look. Yang Qin instantly understood what she meant. She originally didn't want to work with Ning Jiaojiao, but when she saw Chang Wanzhou's calm and composed appearance, her heart wavered. After hesitating for a moment, she nodded slightly. The two of them came to a consensus. After a short pause, the two of them rushed toward Chang Wanzhou from different directions. Chang Wanzhou was focused on waiting for Chu Luiyue to come out. He had already vaguely sensed her aura. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt a sense of danger approaching. He suddenly looked up and saw the two of them rushing toward him. Ning Jiaojiao and Yang Qin didn't expect Chang Wanzhou to be so sharp. They were both shocked for a moment. However, they didn't know that Chang Wanzhou grew up in Nanjiang and was already as vigilant as a wild beast. Therefore, just as they were about to make a move, they were caught red-handed by him. The three of them were silent for a moment. Ning Jiaojiao revealed a fake smile. "We want to talk to you about something," Chang Wanzhou spoke first. "You want to join forces to deal with me?" It wasn't a question, but a statement. Ning Jiaojiao's expression froze. In the next moment, Yang Qin had already made the first move. A poisonous dart flew out instantly. Chang Wanzhou raised his hand, and a force quickly transformed into a long sword. Ding! The poisonous dart hit the blade. It actually rebounded instantly. It fell into a ball of fire at the side. In the blink of an eye, the poisonous dart melted. Yang Qin's hand trembled slightly. Chang Wanzhou's attack was steady, accurate, and ruthless. Moreover, his strength was much stronger than hers. On the other side, Ning Jiaojiao threw out a Xian formation crystal. A huge Xian formation immediately appeared above Chang Wanzhou's head. It completely trapped him. Ning Jiaojiao was only a level 4 Xian master. In order to win the Wanzheng competition this time, she had made sufficient preparations. This Xian formation crystal was engraved with a level 6 Xian formation. Even an intermediate stage 6 warrior might not be able to escape from it, let alone Chang Wanzhou, who had just broken through to stage 6 warrior. Chang Wanzhou looked up at the Xian formation. The light reflected in his eyes was as dazzling as the stars. His sharp chin was clenched, and his fair, almost transparent face seemed to be covered with a thin layer of frost. Just as Ning Jiaojiao and Yang Qin thought they were going to win, the Long Yuan sword suddenly let out an earth-shattering sword cry. Buzz. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 526. Ning Jiaojiao and Yang Qianqian hurriedly turned back to look. The Long Yuan sword is going to recognize its master. On the vast land, there was an endless sea of fire. A huge black sword stood in the middle. Accompanied by this shocking sword hum, a pressure that seemed to have come from ancient times surged out wildly and spread across the world in a mighty manner. Crack! A deep crack suddenly appeared on the ground. It was like a bottomless ravine. The Long Yuan sword was about to be born. The Long Yuan sword has chosen its master. Yang Qin looked at this scene in a daze and suddenly realized something. If not, the Long Yuan sword wouldn't have made such a move. Ning Jiaojiao was also taken aback by his words. After a short moment of daze, her heart sank fiercely. How is this possible? No one here has been chosen. There were only the three of them here. Chang Wanzhou was trapped under her Xian formation, and she and Yang Qin stayed by each side. No one had become the new master of the Long Yuan sword. Unless there was someone else here. At this moment, an extremely bright light suddenly appeared from the bottom of the Long Yuan sword. A figure could be vaguely seen in it. Yang Qin and Ning Jiaojiao were once again pushed back by that terrifying aura. However, the two of them didn't have time to care about anything else and immediately looked up. However, that light was too blinding, and they couldn't see who it was at all. In the blur, they could only see that the person flew to the top of the Long Yuan sword. Then, that person held the sword with both hands. Boom! The ground started to shake violently. With the Long Yuan sword as the center, countless deep ravines spread out. Who is that? Who is that? Ning Jiaojiao was filled with hatred, and she almost broke her teeth from clenching them. They had been fighting here and there, but she didn't expect that someone had already beaten them to it. Her painstaking efforts were all in vain. Yang Qin was originally filled with hatred, but when she heard Ning Jiaojiao's vicious curses, she suddenly said, "No matter who that person is, we have to stop him." Ning Jiaojiao frowned. "Are you crazy? The Long Yuan sword has already recognized its master. Whatever we do now is useless." How can we stop it? With their current strength, they probably couldn't even get close to the Long Yuan sword. Yang Qin sneered. Looks like you really don't know anything about sword Dao. The Long Yuan sword was a divine weapon. Even if it chose to recognize a master, it would still take some time. During this process, the person chosen by it must be fully focused. Once disturbed, you mean, since we've already joined forces, we might as well solve this problem as well. Even if we can't get the Long Yuan sword, no one else can. Yang Qin's words moved Ning Jiaojiao. She only thought for a moment and immediately agreed. All right. After saying that, the two of them looked at each other and rushed towards the figure in the air. But just as the two of them moved, a terrifying wave of energy suddenly came from the side. The two of them subconsciously turned to look, only to see that Chang Wanzhou had already torn apart the Xian formation. It flew towards the two of them. How did he do it? Ning Jiaojiao cried out in shock. That was a level 6 Xian formation. Chang Wanzhou actually cracked it so quickly. It was a pity that the two of them were so focused on the Long Yuan sword that they didn't even know how Chang Wanzhou won. Yang Qin immediately said, "You go and stop him." Ning Jiaojiao immediately retorted, "Why should it be me?" Who knew if Yang Qin would take the opportunity to attack the Long Yuan sword? As if seeing through her thoughts, Yang Qin sneered. "Do you think it's so easy for the Long Yuan sword to recognize a new master? Stop dreaming. If you want to go over there, we can exchange." Ning Jiaojiao choked and quickly glanced at the Long Yuan sword. She was a little scared. "I'll go," she said angrily and rushed towards Chang Wanzhou. Yang Qin flew up on the sword. The closer she got, the stronger the Long Yuan sword's aura. Helplessly, she could only stop. Unfortunately, she still couldn't see the figure in the ball of light. She took a deep breath and clasped her hands together. A burly figure suddenly appeared in front of her. It was a man whose entire body was bronze in color. Whether it was his appearance or his figure, he was no different from a normal man. Only his eye sockets were empty and black. Also, he didn't have the aura of a living person. This was Yang Qin's trump card, a puppet that she had refined with a special secret technique. She stared at the puppet's empty eye sockets and enunciated each word as if she was trying to bewitch it. "Go and kill that person." As his voice fell, two balls of dark green flames suddenly burned in the puppet's eye sockets. He nodded stiffly. His voice was hoarse and rough, like metal grinding against each other. "Yes, master." Swoosh. His figure moved, and in an instant he was like an arrow leaving the bow, heading straight for that dazzling ball of light. Yang Qin narrowed her eyes, and a determined sneer flashed across her lips. She had obtained this puppet with much difficulty. Originally, she had thought that she wouldn't use it unless she had no other choice. She didn't expect that the Wanzheng competition would force her to this extent. However, on second thought, this was for the Long Yuan sword, so there was nothing to hesitate about. She didn't want to lose the competition and have the Long Yuan sword snatched away by someone else. Chu Luiwei gripped the hilt of the Long Yuan sword tightly with both hands. Her palms were boiling hot. Sensing the movement beside her, she glanced from the corner of her eye and saw the figure rushing towards her. She focused her gaze and frowned slightly. A cold glint flashed across her eyes. It's actually a puppet? The method to refine this puppet was extremely cruel and insidious. It required a cultivator to extract all their internal organs while they were still alive. Then, it would be infused with a specially made secret medicine and a special seal. It would take a full 100 days to refine. During this process, the cultivator's consciousness had to be maintained. After days and nights of pain and suffering, their soul would be destroyed the moment they completed the refinement, and they would die completely. As this secret technique was too cruel and ruthless, it had always been banned in the entire mainland. She didn't expect to see it here. Chu Luiwei turned her gaze and saw Yang Qin staring at her. She instantly understood. She didn't expect this to be her. This Yang Qin's background was probably not that simple. Just as the puppet was about to rush over, a huge black phantom suddenly appeared in front of Chu Luiwei. It was the legendary three-eyed eagle. It spread its wings and almost covered the sky. The next moment, it swooped down towards the puppet. The smile on Yang Qin's face froze. That's the legendary divine beast, the legendary three-eyed eagle? Who exactly is the person in the ball of light? How did he contract with such a divine beast? Ah! A mournful scream suddenly rang out. She immediately turned around and saw Ning Jiaojiao being defeated, and her body was already covered in blood. Chang Wanzhou's expression was cold as he slashed down with his sword. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 527. Ning Jiaojiao's figure instantly disappeared. At this point, she was also officially eliminated. Chang Wanzhou's expression was cold as he quickly looked up. Chu Luiyue was in that ball of light. He tipped his toes and immediately flew toward Yang Qin. Yang Qin's heart sank. She was only at the peak of stage 5. She was no match for Chang Wanzhou. Wait! She hurriedly spoke. Chang Wanzhou went around her and stood in front of her, looking at her expressionlessly. Yang Qin felt a chill run down her spine and hurriedly said, "We can work together first." Chang Wanzhou frowned. Yang Qin explained, "The Long Yuan sword has already chosen its owner. It didn't choose either of us. Why don't we work together first and stop that person?" As she spoke, she pointed in the direction of Chu Luiyue. Chang Wanzhou's expression became even stranger. This Yang Qin, does she think that I'll work with her to attack Chu Luiyue? Yang Qin saw his reaction and thought that he was tempted. She hurriedly continued to persuade him. "Don't worry. We don't have to take the risk. The puppet I sent out will deal with that person." Chang Wanzhou turned around to take a look. The puppet was fighting with the legendary three-eyed eagle. Yang Qin suddenly felt a little guilty. That divine beast is just an illusion. It's easy to deal with. Suddenly, her gaze shifted. Right? Why don't we go up together? We don't have to win. As long as we interfere with that person, the Long Yuan sword won't be able to recognize its owner. And that person will also suffer a backlash. Even if he doesn't die, he will be crippled. While she was talking excitedly on her own, Chang Wanzhou's gaze had already frozen bit by bit. The next moment his aura skyrocketed. Yang Qin thought that he was going to agree to help. Just as she smiled, she saw Chang Wanzhou rushing toward her. The smile on her face instantly disappeared, and she retreated in panic. "What are you doing?" "I said we'll deal with that person together." "You're crazy." Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips tightly and quickly appeared in front of her. He raised the long sword in his hand. He slashed it down. Xuanji Square. This was the 6th day of the Wanzheng competition. Most people were eliminated on the first day. The later it went on, the fewer people were eliminated every day. However, this did not make them impatient. Instead, it made them even more excited. Many things had happened in Shilin City in the past few days. Everyone was still talking about them happily. The biggest topic of discussion was, what rank would Chu Luiyue get? As the person with the lowest cultivation level among the hundreds of competitors, Chu Luiyue naturally became the focus of everyone's discussion. The longer she was Wanzhou, the higher the crowd was Wanzhou. Even in some of the more remote corners of the square, there were already gambling houses. Wanzhou is 2 Wanzhous. It's now. The competition is about to end. If we don't act now, it will be too late. Eyes of the thought of Wanzhou. This is the last of my money. Hey, what are you thinking about? Can't you just bet on one? There are only 6 people left. Isn't that easy to guess? Then I'll bet on Chu Luiyue to be 6th. Are you sure? Young Master Jian from Dragon Teeth Mountain bet half of his fortune on Chu Luiyue to be 1st. Are you sure you want to pick 6th? I'm not stupid. How can Chu Luiyue be 1st? Jian Fengqi, to put it nicely, is spending a lot of money to win a beauty smile. To put it bluntly, he's a fool with a lot of money. How can we compare to him? She'll be 6th. She'll be the next one to be eliminated. Place your bets. You can't go back on your words. Yuan Jinghong and Jian Fengqi happened to walk past. Jian Fengqi suddenly stopped when he heard his name. He rubbed his chin and smiled. So that's what everyone is saying about me now. He took the time to come to Xuanji Square today to see how the competition was going. After all, he had bet a lot of money on Chu Luiyue. He didn't expect to hear these words as soon as he arrived. Yuan Jinghong coughed. You're not angry, are you? Actually, they're just saying. Why would I be angry? I'm more than happy that someone is giving me money. Yuan Jinghong said in surprise. Are you serious? You still want to gamble? Jian Fengqi looked at him lovingly. I don't have much, but I have a lot of money. Of course, you might not understand this, but don't worry, I won't look down on you because of this. Yuan Jinghong's mouth twitched. This guy is asking for a beating. Whatever. I do want to see how much money Jian Fengqi has left to squander. Jian Fengqi walked over with a smile. A ring of cosmos appeared on the gambling table. Everyone was silent for a moment, then turned to look at the owner of the ring. It was Jian Fengqi. The person who spoke ill of him lowered his head in panic. Jian Fengqi didn't take it seriously at all. He said with a smile, there are 5,000 white crystal coins in here. I bet that Chu Luiyue will win. Everyone was still silent, but the way they looked at the ring of cosmos changed. 5,000 white crystal coins. Wasn't this the same as giving them money for free? Jian Fengqi had already bet so much in all the major casinos in West Hill. They didn't expect him to patronize a small gambling house like theirs. Young Master Jian, are you sure? Jian Fengqi glanced at the person who spoke earlier and smiled. Don't worry, I don't care about this little money. It's just for fun. The man's legs went weak and he almost fell to the ground. Everyone looked at each other. Young Master Jian is indeed generous. Jian Fengqi took out his bone fan and took 2 steps back. Someone has been eliminated. Suddenly, there was a cry of surprise from the side. The bustling square suddenly quieted down. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the 8 teleportation arrays. Ripples were surging. This was a sign that someone was about to come out. A moment later, a figure rushed out. She fell heavily to the ground. It's a woman. Who is it? Who is it? Is it Chu Luiyue? The crowd began to stir, and many people couldn't wait to see. The woman was lying on the ground, covered in blood and with many burn marks on her body. She looked very miserable. Obviously, her experience in the Tianling God realm was also somewhat miserable. As if she heard the commotion around her, the woman moved and raised her head. A bloody face appeared in front of everyone. It's Ning Jiaojiao. Xianfeng Hall's Ning Jiaojiao. Someone reacted and shouted, pointing at the black jade board. The name that disappeared is Ning Jiaojiao. The surroundings fell into a strange silence. Ning Jiaojiao was the only daughter of the Xianfeng Hall master. How could she be eliminated so easily? Where's Chu Luiyue? Jian Fengqi tapped his bone fan lightly in his hand and looked back. Many people, including the man who had criticized him, turned pale. It seemed that many people had bet on Chu Luiyue being the 6th. He comforted them very sincerely. Don't be nervous. The good show is yet to come. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 528. Ning Jiaojiao looked around in a daze before realizing what had happened. She was forced to leave the Tianling God realm. She was eliminated. Countless pairs of eyes with different expressions landed on her body, causing her to feel extremely uncomfortable. She still failed. Whether it was the Long Yuan sword or the Wanzheng competition, she didn't get anything other than injuries. She clenched her fists and smashed them on the ground. But as soon as she moved, she felt a sharp pain. She didn't know when, but the back of her hand had also been burned with a few huge blisters. After tossing around like this, it was incomparably painful. Ning Jiaojiao's face was contorted from the pain. I didn't expect Ning Jiaojiao to be 6th. I thought it would definitely be Chu Luiyue. Even if it wasn't Chu Luiyue, It should be someone else. Ning Jiaojiao is considered the one with the best status among these people, right? Even if you think with your toes, you know that her father must have helped her prepare a lot. I really don't know what's going on inside. Chaotic discussions entered her ears. Ning Jiaojiao suddenly froze. What are these people talking about? Shouldn't Chu Luiwei have been eliminated long ago? She looked at the black jade board floating in midair almost instinctively. Most of the names on the jadestone board had disappeared. The remaining 5 names were especially clear. She saw one of the names at first glance, Chu Luiwei. Her name was on the list. I haven't been eliminated yet. Ning Jiaojiao's mind was completely blank. How could this be? Chu Luiwei had already been swallowed by the golden flames in the crater. She should have already left the Tianling God realm at that time. What's going on now? Her face was as pale as a ghost. She reached out with difficulty and pointed at Chu Luiwei's name, her voice trembling. Chu Luiwei is still there? The 8 elders standing beside the teleportation portal looked at each other. Actually, they were also very confused about this matter. But this was the truth. Elder Duanmu Chun nodded, confirming her conjecture. That's right, you're 6th. The remaining 5 people haven't come out yet. A scene suddenly appeared in Ning Jiaojiao's mind. When the Long Yuan sword recognized its master, a ball of light rushed out from the bottom of the sinkhole. Within it, there was indeed a figure. Could it be that was Chu Luiwei? But even if that person was Chu Luiwei, there were only 4 of them. How could there be 6 of them? She once again looked at the 5 names on the jade board seriously and urgently. Other than Chu Luiwei, Yang Qin, and Chang Wanzhou, there were 2 other people whom she had never seen before. What the hell is going on? Ning Jiaojiao's heart was in a mess. Countless conjectures collided in her mind, causing her head to hurt. She hugged her head in pain and screamed in despair. Everyone was shocked by her reaction. However, Ning Jiaojiao's eyes rolled back and she fainted on the ground. Elder Duanmu Chun immediately replied, "Hurry up and take her away for treatment." The black cavalry around the square immediately went forward and carried Ning Jiaojiao away. However, Ning Jiaojiao's crazed appearance just now still made them feel a lingering fear. The few elders looked at each other with some worry in their hearts. It was obvious that she had encountered some kind of stimulation in the Tianling God realm. It was a pity that they were only in charge of guarding and operating this teleportation formation and had no way of knowing what was going on inside. Elder Duanmu Chun frowned and sighed. He had long said that the Tianling God realm could not be opened casually, and these people who did not have the Tianling royal bloodline could not be allowed in. Now, something had indeed happened. However, it was already too late to stop it now. The only thing they could do was pray that the situation would not become worse. Yuan Jinghong looked at the names on the jade board and clicked his tongue. At first, he thought that Jian Fengqi was crazy to bet on Chu Luiwei, but now, it seemed that it was not completely hopeless. If this really happened, Jian Fengqi would simply become rich overnight. Should he also bet a little more? Where did you find such a powerful lass? He went to Jian Fengqi and asked in a low voice. Jian Fengqi glanced at him condescendingly. Yuan Jinghong immediately shut his mouth and silently walked to the gambling table at the side. I'll add 1,000 white crystals. Tianling God Realm. Yang Qin flew on her sword and narrowly avoided Chang Wanzhou's attack. However, the sharp wind from the blade still left a wound on her shoulder. She quickly glanced at the wound on her shoulder. Blood was flowing out, and her entire arm was quickly dyed red. If that attack had been a little more direct, it would have been her head that was chopped off. Yang Qin was terrified, and a deep sense of fear finally welled up in her heart. She was no match for Chang Wanzhou at all. If this continued, Chang Wanzhou would be able to force her out of the Tianling God realm in a few moves. She hurriedly looked up. Her puppet was currently engaged in a fierce battle with the phantom of the divine beast. Right at this moment, the Long Yuan sword's aura suddenly surged again. Countless ravines crisscrossed on the ground. Lightning flashed on the gigantic black sword. The wind howled. The sky had completely darkened, and only the long yuan sword shone brilliantly. Buzz! Buzz! The sword's cry shook heaven and earth. Chu Luiwei gripped the sword hilt tightly with both hands, and his heart pounded. All the power in his life surged out at this moment. The vast land filled with endless sea of fire seemed to be lifted at this moment. The long yuan sword that had been buried deep underground for 1,000 years finally moved. Chu Luiwei's face flushed red, and his eyes burned with a crazy fighting spirit. The next moment, the long yuan sword rose. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 529. In an instant, all the light in the world seemed to be swallowed by the long yuan sword. Before Yang Qin could see the figure clearly, she felt a terrifying wave of energy coming toward her. She hurriedly summoned the puppet, wanting to use it to block it. However, at that moment, the legendary three-eyed eagle's third eye suddenly opened. The bronze-colored puppet immediately burst apart. Yang Qin widened her eyes. That puppet was her most important trump card. However, it had been destroyed so easily. Chang Wanzhou took the opportunity to attack. The blade glinted coldly. Yang Qin felt a chill down her spine. She slowly lowered her head and saw the sharp tip of the blade coming out of her chest. Indignation, anger, fear, she panicked. Just as she was about to speak, that wave of energy had already hit her body. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her organs felt like they were about to be crushed. Then, her figure finally disappeared from the spot. Chang Wanzhou looked up. Chu Luiwei stood in the air. The long yuan sword was in her hands, officially awakened. The light was dazzling, and sparks were flying everywhere. He almost couldn't see the situation in the ball of light, but he could accurately feel that Chu Luiwei's aura was soaring. In the next moment, Chu Luiwei finally raised the long yuan sword high up. Boom! The ground completely collapsed. The endless sea of fire started to collapse. The energy between heaven and earth seemed to have lost control in an instant. It became extremely chaotic and rushed toward the long yuan sword. In this terrifying storm, Chang Wanzhou looked as far as he could. In mid-air, Chu Luiwei raised the sword with both hands. Against the backdrop of the huge sword, her figure appeared even more exquisite and petite. However, it wasn't small at all. The long yuan sword was indeed powerful, but it had already become her sword. An extremely ferocious aura surged toward him. Chang Wanzhou slightly staggered his feet, his muscles tensed, and the force in his body surged rapidly. However, just as the aura was about to sweep over, it suddenly stopped in front of him. Everything around him was being destroyed, except for him. Chang Wanzhou looked at the figure above, a faint light flashing in his eyes. In the next moment, his figure finally disappeared on the spot. Now, you are the only one left in the Tianling God realm. Taizu's voice entered his ears. The Dragon Abyss sword can now officially recognize its master. Chu Luiwei slowly tightened his grip on the sword hilt. He looked into the distance and nodded slightly. In the next moment, she raised the long yuan sword above her head. Countless amounts of energy poured into it, even forming a huge energy storm at the top. Chu Luiwei's force was being consumed at a crazy rate. The water droplets spun rapidly, and the energy within it flowed endlessly into her limbs and bones. Bang! A subtle sound suddenly rang out in his mind. Chu Luiwei actually broke through to become a stage 4 warrior at this time. The fourth pattern slowly appeared on the water droplet. Chu Luiwei went all out. Swordfall. An invisible force surged out from the long yuan sword and silently rushed forward. In the distant horizon, the bright moon hanging in the black night skies suddenly fell. Suddenly, the endless water below began to ripple. Instantly, it was like the moon splashing into the galaxy. Thousands of brilliant rays of light bloomed at the same time. Chu Luiwei watched everything unfold before her without blinking. Taizu's words were still ringing in her ears. If a stage 9 warrior can summon the heavenly Tao and successfully break through, they can create a small kiliocosm of their own. Unfortunately, I didn't succeed back then. At the last step, all my efforts were in vain. Although the heavenly Tao still remained here, it collapsed and scattered, causing this incomplete small kiliacosm to be split into two. Half of this world is water, and the other half is fire. Half is extreme cold, and the other half is extreme heat. And as time passed, the environment of these two halves became more and more extreme, finally forming the current state. In order to balance the power in this small kiliacosm, I also forcefully split the Long Yuan sword's soul into two parts and suppressed each side. Of course, my remaining consciousness was also split into two halves. No matter which side you go to, the Long Yuan sword you obtain will be incomplete. Only by completely merging this small kiliacosm can you obtain the complete Long Yuan sword. Boom, boom, boom. That invisible sword aura directly passed through the dividing line in the middle. That was where Chu Luiwei and the rest were when they first arrived in the Tianling God realm. A huge black gap appeared in midair. Then, the golden flames started to burn in that direction, and the bright water also started to spread over here. The two halves of the world that were separated finally started to merge. Chu Luiwei was elated and couldn't help but ask, "Taizu, is this going to work?" An illusory figure suddenly appeared beside her. "You did very well." Shangguan Jing stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the scene before him with a complicated expression. Although he had already expected Chu Luiwei to succeed, he didn't expect it to be so smooth. "This lass, you have the power of the heavenly Tao in your body, and you can deal with the scattered heavenly Tao in this small kiliacosm. As long as the Long Yuan sword is completely awakened and absorbs all the heavenly Tao's power, you can truly become its new master." As he spoke, Shangguan Jing let out a long sigh. "Everything is destined. In this world, there's no one more suitable than you." All of this sounded simple, but it was actually very difficult to achieve. Just being a cultivator with the power of the heavenly Tao was extremely rare. Secondly, one had to have the bloodline of the Tianling royal family. Only then could one successfully open that door. Yet, Chu Luiwei fulfilled both of these strict conditions. Although he still had some doubts about the black pyramid in her body, Chu Luiwei's current performance was enough to explain everything. There was indeed no one more suitable than her for the Long Yuan sword's new master. Chu Luiwei didn't expect him to suddenly appear and was a little surprised. However, she quickly realized that Taizu's figure was actually gradually fading. Her heart sank. "Taizu, what are you?" Shangguan Jing smiled and waved his hand. "It's fine. I've told you before that I'm just a remnant consciousness stored in this Long Yuan sword. Now that the Long Yuan sword has awakened and the small kiliacosm has been reconstructed, there's naturally no need for me to continue existing." Chu Luiwei's heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something. "Is there no other way? I've admired you for a long time." Shangguan Jing looked at her anxious and nervous appearance and suddenly felt his heart soften. "I really like you very much. How good would it be if you were a descendant of the Tianling Shangguan family?" Chu Luiwei felt like something was stuck in her throat. Shangguan Jing paused for a moment and said, "I have a request, but I don't know if you can agree to it. In that black pyramid of yours, perhaps, there are secrets related to the Shangguan family hidden. I wonder if you can help protect it?" Chu Luiwei felt a lump in her throat. "Alright, I will do my best." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.